Ride the Rockies has been going on for 36 years now, and this is my 7th year of doing the ride. The ride is not a circular ride this year. It has a different start and stop location about 80 miles away. I parked the car in Golden, and then we took the bus to Copper Mountain where we started. We did a little tune-up ride along the river there, went back toward Fresco for a 7-mile, 8-mile ride. And then I had a spaghetti dinner, or I had went to Mass and then a spaghetti dinner at the church. Day one was from Copper Mountain to Glenwood Springs. It was one of the 2 days that were over 110 miles. I had 113 miles with 4,300 feet of climb. The day started out at high elevation. I thought this would be a problem, but it wasn't. It was only 11 miles to climb 1,400 feet to Fremont Pass, and from there it's pretty much downhill with a couple passes that you're going uphill. But we had a strong headwind the last 40 miles, which made that difficult, and the temperatures did go up. The last aid station at mile 92, we entered into a canyon and rode on a gorgeous bike path along the Colorado River. I took quite a few photos here. It was quite impressive when the river narrowed down, and it just really rushed because of the high water levels. When we came into Glenwood Springs, that was another unique experience. You cross this bridge, and then you get on the elevator, and you go down to the main level below the bridge, and they hand you a beer ticket for one of the two taverns in town. I then went to the school, set up, got my shower, and went back and had that beer along with a great dinner. Day two was a shorter day of 31 miles. It was sandwiched between 210-mile days, and it went from Glenwood Springs to Basalt. A few of the people went a little further that were staying in hotels and Snowmass, so they got an extra 20 miles in that day that took away from the third day total. We started in Glenwood Springs. I had breakfast at the campsite with JKF Catering, which was good, and we rode the first 7 miles on a bike path, and then we got onto roads and rode up a pretty steep hill to the first aid station, and then continued on up and down to Basalt. We passed by a nice reservoir. We were on a gravel road for a little bit, so I enjoyed the ride. We ended up getting into camp quite early, and which was great because they had a band playing from noon till 4. It is 107 miles with 1,740 feet of climb from Basalt to Salida. It also includes going over Independence Pass at elevation 12,095 feet. This makes it the most difficult day of the week. It was nice that the Lions Club started breakfast early, so I was able to get a 6 a.m. start. We started at the middle school and quickly made our way to the bike path to Aspen. Most of the bike path was paved with a small section of gravel and dirt. Going through Aspen was quite pretty. And then we started going up the pass. The pass was not as bad as I remembered it several years ago. However, the last switchback we had a headwind, and that was really bad. It was windy and cold on Independence Pass, so I did not spend much time there. The downhill to Twin Lakes was great. It was nice to get warmer as we went down the mountain. In Twin Lakes, I ended up getting an ice cream cone at the one of the stores across from the aid station, and then continued on toward Buena Vista and the last aid station past that. When we got into Salida, we set up at one of the athletic fields. We had good grass and ended up going into town, and there was a band playing and got a free beer ticket and free beer, and listened to the band for a little bit before having dinner. Was 80 miles and 6,000 feet of climb from Salida to Breckenridge, and was probably my least favorite day of the ride, with the first 57 miles to Fairplay being on the shoulder of a busy highway. The day was mainly uphill for the first 68 miles to Hoosier Pass, then a nice 32-mile downhill into Breckenridge. There was a strong crosswind for most of the ride, and it blew one of my friends off the shoulder onto the grass.
What happened? Just stop and look? Gus got you.
Lunch at Fairplay was pleasant. We stopped at a restaurant in town and had a nice lunch. Once we got past Fairplay, we got on a minor or smaller road with a lot less traffic, and also a bicycle path that made it up to Hoosier Pass, which is at 11,542 feet above sea level. The camping was also nice in Breckenridge. We had a ball field we set our tents up at. It was a little ways from downtown, so you had to take a bus. Day 5 was a nice day. It was, they gave you a choice of doing a 30-mile loop around Breckenridge and Dillon Lake or Reservoir, or adding 40 miles to it to go out to Ute Pass and back. We chose the optional 40 miles, so we ended up 70 miles for the day with 4,200 feet of climb. It was nice coming back to Breckenridge and being at the same campground, so you didn't have to take your tents down and set them up. That allowed for us to get a later start. That morning, my friend said he saw frost on the ground. It was predicted to get to 42 degrees, so it must have been at least 32. I stayed in my tent till the sun started to hit it, and it turned into a nice day. So it was gorgeous. I loved riding around the reservoir at a leisurely pace and going up to the pass. When we went up to the Ute Pass, coming back, the owners of Summit Cycle Solutions, who was providing the elevated camping and took charge of renting out hotel rooms, reserving those, and also doing the bus ride from Golden to Copper, lived along the route, so he invited any of the people to his house for lunch, which was brats, beer and pop. So we took advantage of that and stopped by his house for lunch. The views around the Dillon Reservoir are great, and it's a great bike path to be riding on. When we got back to camp and we decided to go into town, there was a guy there with an old Cadillac that was loading people up to take them into town and back. We ended up taking the shuttle bus, and that worked out great. We had lunch at a where they gave us free beer tickets again, and we ate outside with live music, and it was a great time in Breckenridge. Day 6 was the last day, and we went from Breckenridge to Golden. The distance was increased a little from 78 miles to 86 miles because of some permit issues. And the climb was 5,500 feet. I ate breakfast in Fresco, and then we went around the Dillon Reservoir again for some great views before we started the climb up Loveland Pass. The first aid station was at A Basin, which was about 23 miles into the ride. And then we continued up Loveland Pass over the top, which was at 11,991 feet. And then we went down another 7 miles or so to the aid station number 2, which was the start of one of the bike paths going down the pass. The downhills were great until we came up to aid station number 4, which is Floyd Hill. That was a very steep but short climb. Mainly downhill on both bike paths and road until we got into Golden, and we ended up having pizza, beer, and pop in Golden to finish up the ride. Here are some of my thoughts on the week-long ride. We had fewer people than normal. Normally they have 2,000 riders, where this year there was only 1,100. I think for the most part that's because the course looked difficult with 2 days, over 110 miles, and the high starting elevation and the long last day. And then the previous year they had problems with food. The chef guy had COVID, so they ran short on food for a few days. We also had poor camping conditions last year. We were in dirt for 3 of the days. But overall, I was quite happy. Colorado is always a beautiful place to bicycle, and I will definitely do this again. It is also nice to make friends along the way and ride with new people.